Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scream with Ryan C. Showers podcast, where the film critic meets the Scream fan twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. So this is the second official ever Scream with Ryan C. Showers news episode, which I'm so excited to do here. But the structure of this episode is going to be, first, you're going to hear from me and my friend Anthony Dapuzzo, and we're going to cover a lot of the Scream news, in particular about Scream 8 and Neve Campbell and Jenna Ortega. Then you're going to hear me give an interview of the composer for Final Destination Bloodlines. His name is Tim Winn, and Final Destination Bloodlines comes out today, so everybody please enjoy seeing that this weekend. Then after that, we're going to round out with a discussion about the future of FunWorld and Ghostface with my friend Justin and my producer Ashley. So everybody please enjoy. Now, before I go any further, I need to thank the producers of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. They include Ashley Summers from the Squirrel and Spud Shop. She and I host a Scream game every Wednesday on Instagram, so please check that out. I also need to thank TJ Jones, who comes from the Box Office Buds podcast. He is responsible for all of the graphic design of Scream with Ryan C. Showers in terms of new episode cards on social media promotion, so thank you so much to TJ for all he does. I also need to thank contributors Mark Karim, Mark Vieira, and Joey Velisi. Joey Velisi is the guy who writes the scripts for Scream with Ryan C. Showers. Episode 112, we wrote a Scream 7 script, which I read out loud, about the end of the Carpenter sisters storyline. And then the sequel to that was called Screams. It was centered around the legacy of Gail Weathers. That's episode 155. And Joey is currently working on the final Scream, which this is a product that is going to examine the relationship, the marriage of Mark and Sidney. Unlike the real Scream 7, this will feature Mark Kincaid as Sidney's husband, and she won't have a teenage daughter. Both of her daughters will be young, so it'll be much different than the real Scream 7 we're going to get. But that is going to be coming to the podcast late summer, early fall, so please tune in for that. I need to thank everybody over at Patreon. Thank you to everybody who subscribes to the Patreon at any and every tier. I'm an independent entity, so any bit of support that comes into the Patreon goes back into the podcast. Joining the Patreon gets you ad-free and early access to every episode, as well as the opportunity to join the community of the show. We have group chats across social media. In particular, Instagram is really the hub of the podcast community. More importantly, joining the Patreon is the vessel in which you would use to come onto the podcast, either in a one-on-one situation with me or a small panel. In addition, there's a guaranteed invite every month to a big group Zoom recording about a Scream topic. An exciting feature of the podcast is the audio commentary episodes. Every Scream fan knows what it was like listening to Wes Craven do the audio commentaries for the original trilogy and Scream 4, with Marianne Maddalena and Kevin Williamson and Patrick Lussier. And what I'm trying to do for my Patreon subscribers is I am going to be performing an audio commentary of a Scream or a Scream-related movie, one per month, every month. And my goal is to try to approach these as I'm doing deep analytical analysis about the characters, about the themes, about just general reaction. So it's something that I'm really proud of, and I hope continues to be a cherished part of the podcast. So the commentary is available as a normal podcast episode for anybody to listen to like they would any other podcast, but it will also be available as a video watch along. So everybody, please go over to Patreon, subscribe to Scream with RCS. I would be eternally grateful. So I need to go through and thank everybody over at Patreon who is subscribed as a stab investor or a daddy/mama Ghostface. So the daddy/mama Ghostface of the Patreon are Carrie Tenney, Brett Janovich, Corey Wilson, and Stevie Shears. The stab investors include Allie, Mark Karim, Tamika Jones, David D., Garrison Nichols, Gustavo Mora, Jess Mariano, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault, Josh Calamari, Josh Carr, Scream Queens podcast, both Josh and Justine, The Horror Project podcast, Justin Weir, Kevin Abner, Mark Vieira, PWO5, aka Philip Douglas, Quentin Harrison, and Sam Levy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Oh my gosh, we are here for the second ever news episode of Scream with Ryan C. Showers on a Friday. So I'm really excited to be coming to you. I feel like Gail Weathers, and especially the way that TJ, my graphic designer, kind of makes the logos and like the thumbnails. It's very much like Top Story with Gail Weathers. So anyways, joining me here, I am pleased to welcome a contributor to the podcast, Anthony Dapuzzo. Hey, Anthony.
How's it going? I'm so happy to be here.
You know, you have really proven yourself to me, over our friendship and with the Landon episode in particular. I'm just so happy to be doing more episodes with you, and that you are kind of I've bestowed upon you the title of contributor. I think it's very fitting and worthy of you.
I'm so honored, and I cannot wait to pop up on here more frequently. I feel like every time I'm always excited to record with you, but after we do it, I'm I feel so complete. I'm yes, that was a great conversation. So to be able to do that more often, is very exciting.
Well, if you ever, this feels like we're in marriage counseling, but if you ever don't feel that spark when you leave, please let me know and we will work it out. So Anthony, besides at Scream with Ryan C. Showers, with all of the sparks and all of the fulfillment that you just described, which just made my night, where can they find you online and for other?
Yeah, you guys can find me on my personal Twitter. It's just my name, Anthony Dapuzzo, and I do a podcast with my best friend Nolan, Never Split Up Pod. Follow us on all social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube. We just cover a horror movie every week and we talk about it. We're just wrapping up the Final Destination franchise. We're going to do a ranking after we see the new movie, so it's always fun. And we do cover Scream. We did the OG trilogy. We did some fun episodes, so it's always fun when we talk about that franchise too. So
we're recording well before, of course, Final Destination gets released. Anthony is a huge Final Destination person, much bigger than I am, but I got to see Bloodlines early. I can't talk about it yet, but
so happy for you.
Thank you, and I hope that everybody enjoys it. I think you will enjoy it. But this episode will be coming out the day of release, so everybody, please go enjoy and have fun. Yeah. So Anthony, okay, let's do it. So we got some news this past week about the Scream 7 trailer. So this comes from Beyond the Mask, and he always prefaces that this may be incorrect, but it kind of lines up with where my instinct is and what I would have assumed. So I feel comfortable at least talking about it and putting it out there as a feeler. So apparently the Scream 7 trailer is going to be released in late September, early October, and then we will get a full trailer in December. Anthony, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who follows, the movie industry, it's kind of, I wouldn't want to, sound like I'm talking up myself, but it's kind of obvious that the first piece of material we're going to see from the Scream 7 is going to be this fall. I would wager it's going to be closer to Halloween in October than September, just because that'll make it pop more. I feel like everyone online is so funny. Why haven't we seen anything yet? I'm first of all, they just finished filming. Second of all, this is a horror slasher movie, and we're almost a year out still, so that's not how marketing works. You don't want to blow anything too early. You want to build up the hype. So usually for these kind of movies, you're not going to see anything, much earlier than 4 months prior to release, even a teaser trailer. So I feel like Halloween's right on target. And so I would say mid-October to the Halloween, we're going to see a teaser trailer, and then, right after the holidays or, right before the holidays, we'll get a trailer. I would say probably January, a full trailer.
Yeah, honestly. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. So just as a recap for people, so the Scream, the Scream 6 trailer. Okay, so we got a teaser trailer in the middle of December of them on the subway, and then we got the full trailer the middle of January, early mid-January, and then of course the movie was released in March, the first week of March. So that the timeline there makes sense. Kind of, it's a little bit earlier if this is true about Scream 7, but on target. So for Scream 5, it was the movie was released in January, and we got the full trailer in October. That Scream 5 is a little bit different, but we got a lot of trailers after that, that were closer, in December. So it all kind of made sense. But I think the reason why people have that expectation, oh my gosh, why haven't we heard or seen anything, is because Scream 4, for instance, that we got the teaser trailer for that at the Scream Awards, I think.
Yeah, I remember that. I watched that for the trailer.
In October, I think, and the movie didn't come out until April. So I mean, that was a good 6 months, and they had just finished filming in the I think it's maybe September. I mean, that was a quick turnaround, and those days are over. I think also that just signals an older time where social media wasn't so prominent, and I think you summed it up really well in terms of you don't want to blow your load. You didn't say those words, I said those words, but
I was going to, but I'm let me stop.
Well, I'll say it because, it's different. It's so funny, when a straight guy says it, people are like, ew, but if a gay guy says it, it's charming. So, a movie doesn't want to blow its load before, if it's not at the right time, and because our attention spans are so small and so much is happening all the time and we're so distracted by more news and more content and blah, 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 the movies really want to hit hard right before they come out. So with the last, 6 weeks before they come out. And ironically, so cool, love this, Scream 7 could and probably will if this isn't on the radar of Paramount, it should be. They could get a Super Bowl ad, which I think is so cool, In addition to that, Scream 7 will have a trailer attached to the big Christmas holiday release movies. So like, Wicked, Avatar, whatever, right? And whatever horror movies come out around that time. So right. I think that like there is actually a lot of opportunity for eyes to be on Scream 7 for big moments like that, in terms of like holiday Christmas movies, but also Super Bowl stuff. So I think it's actually kind of in a nice sweet spot. So Anthony, what do you think?
100% agreement. I would even put money. I knew Paramount is 100. I'm not gonna say 100%, but they're 99.9% going to be releasing a Super Bowl ad for Scream 7. It's coming. Right. So it's exciting. Yeah, I think that I've been, over the last few weeks, I've been thinking like the marketing campaign for this movie has the potential to be something really special. I feel like 5 and especially 6, like the marketing was everywhere, but 7's going to be like Halloween 2018 marketing. That was massive. And I feel like we're going to have a very similar campaign for 7, which is going to really help its opening weekend and to have legs. So I'm really, really excited to see what they do. And another thing, when you're having a slasher movie whodunit, it's also like, people like are on the internet, like, I mean, we do it too, but everyone like studies the frames to these trailers like they're mini movies themselves. So it also doesn't make sense for Paramount to release anything too early just because of that alone. Like, this is a slasher mystery, so we want to save it for the theater.
Exactly. Going off of this, so I'm glad that you mentioned Halloween 2018 because I don't know. So Anthony and I are recording this on Tuesday, May 13th. So if the world blows up tomorrow on horror Twitter, we're sorry. I'll try to throw something in the introduction. In terms of news, so my episode today on Tuesday was with me and the box office buds and talking about
box office talk.
Yeah, talking about the box office and kind of predictions for Scream 7. And I think that I'm so glad that I did this episode for a myriad of reasons, but mostly because they are outsiders to Scream. They are not in the fandom. I don't even get the sense that they like horror all that much. They are just people who study box office and make predictions about the box office and like kind of analyze the box office in general. So to have people who are outside the bubble where there's no emotional investment, come on the show and basically say, yeah, this is going to be a gigantic movie. The over-under number was 50 million for opening weekend, and I think almost everybody went over except for me. So that was really telling for me, and that really gave me like, oh wow, it gave me like the non-Twitterified, non-Melissa Barrera-ified number of what it could realistically be, and like thinking about this because of the time and the distance between Scream 6 and 7, like Scream 7's kind of in a really nice position actually. It's in the pop culture again. Paramount and Spyglass don't want to have to reintroduce it in the same way that they did Scream 5 or even 6, right? That's already there. It's already baked in. The pop culture is already obsessed with Ghostface and it's relevant, But now all you have to do is kind of do the Jamie Lee Curtis thing, the 2018 thing, and make it everywhere. And then like, holy shit, you have a huge ass movie. So I actually think I'm really hopeful about Scream 7, especially for general audiences. I think that I think that any noise that we've heard is going to be just that. I think that like it's the type of thing I talk about this a lot not next week, but the week after. There is this idea that I was having with my friend Josh Reinhold, where it's like the casual viewer, and I think that like Scream 7 is going to attract the casual viewer of Scream, the person who maybe saw 1, 2, and 3 back in the 90s, back when it was really hot and they knew a lot about it, they remember it, but they kind of missed 4 because of whatever, and then they knew 5 and 6 existed, but they didn't really care about it. They may not even think that Nev was in 5, right? So to see that Nev Campbell is coming back to Scream as the main character and that Matthew Lillard is back and to have a 2018 vibe to it, all that would appeal to the casual viewer in a way that like even Scream 5 and 6 don't, because like the thing about like horror, and then I'm passing it to Anthony because this is like a long monologue here, but the thing about horror too is people have this stigma that, if you get up to a number 7 or a 6 or an 8, right, that it hasn't, like, the main character and what we loved about the original has been diluted. And to some extent, that did happen with Scream 6. But, not necessarily because Sidney was the lead of 4 and she wasn't a part in 5. So, a lot of people may have that assumption, like, oh, wow, this is Nev Campbell's big return to the franchise. And in some ways it is, but it's maybe overestimated, if that makes sense. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, because it's not like she's been absent for 20 years. You know, she was just in Scream 5 and she just took a break for one movie. But I cannot understate, I mean, Scream 7 is doing something special. They're not going, they always go back to the beginning, back to the beginning. We're propelling the story forward, but we're using aspects of what came before. We don't know in what way yet, because we have all these killers and Dewey and everyone coming back. So the fascination and interest is there for that alone. And then just imagine for the general public a teaser trailer, you know, quick flashes of Sidney and Gale, and then you just end with surprise Sidney.
Yeah.
And like Matthew Lillard's voice, and you just cut to black. You don't know. It's gonna be like people are like, "What is this? I need to know. I need to go see it." So they have so much in their marketing pocket with what we've seen announced about the movie so far. So they're gonna go all out, and I can't wait. I mean, I got chills just saying that, like thinking of that the teaser trailer being like that. So I can only imagine when the marketing actually ramps up how hyped everyone's gonna get. And the couple negative people on Twitter are not gonna, you know, they're always gonna, the people who don't care about Scream or Nev who always talk about it. It's not gonna affect, you know, everyone who's excited, and just the general audience. Like you said, the box office dudes, and today they were like, we didn't even know about like Scream 6, like something. I didn't even see any trailers, but I'm amped and so curious about Scream 7 because what is going on with Nev coming back and this cast from previous films. And you know, general audiences want to see horror. I mean, my parents took a break from Scream 6 because they're like, oh, no Sidney and Scream, we'll just wait to go see the next one with you. So it's like, you gotta take it like that, you know? Everyone's excited to see Scream and Sidney and Nev.
You know, it's so funny you say that about your parents. You are literally like the fourth person I've spoken to in the month of May that has told me that their parents were either disappointed that Sidney wasn't in Scream 6 or that, like, you know, or that they didn't even really want to watch Scream 6 if it didn't have Sidney in it. So I just think that's so funny. And again, it goes to show like the person, like the type of audience and viewer that is going to see Scream 7. It's not going to be just the people that are obsessed with Melissa and Jenna. Like it's right. There's such a wider net and there's such a wider visibility. And that kind of leads into the next point of news, which is Scream 8. So it was announced. I mean, so it's a soft announcement. It didn't come from Spyglass. Like, it didn't come from The Hollywood Reporter or, you know, Deadline. It came from Daniel PRK, but it's something that's been circling around in the rumor mill for a while, is that Scream 8, that it is in pre-production, that it's happening, and that not only is it happening, but it's going to be a Sidney story again. So we're getting a Scream 7 and 8 that's about Sidney Prescott, that's about Nev Campbell. And again, this is kind of the thing. Like, I don't use Twitter as much as I used to. And when I do use Twitter, it's very like curated to not be in the world of like crazy online leftist or right-wing MAGA. Like I can't go there with the extremes. So I kind of live on Instagram where people like Sidney and like they like Nev, you know, and Facebook and like the real world and talking to people on the podcast, like the box office buds. So, you know, the response that I saw was, oh, this is so great. You know, Scream is back. You know, this is really cool. But, you know, there is a divide of people who feel like, you know, Sidney's story is over. You know, she deserves her piece, blah, blah, blah. All the same old song and dance. So Anthony, what are your thoughts about Sidney coming back for Scream 8? That Scream 8 is kind of already being preceded as a Sidney story, which, by the way, too, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis, after 2018, when they announced the sequel, which was Halloween Kills, they announced both kills and ends together. So this is not abnormal. This has happened before. And let's just say they don't make Scream 9, which I think that they will. I think this will be a proper trilogy. It will, Nev Campbell and Jamie Lee Curtis will have the equal amount of movies that they've been in as their characters. So it's not as though Nev Campbell has made 73 Scream movies and Jamie Lee Curtis has made 7. They are literally the same, yet Nev Campbell seems to be more harshly criticized for returning to Sidney by certain people on the internet, as opposed to Jamie Lee Curtis, who is praised for it. So, Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Well, just to get that out of the way first, again, Vin Diesel's approaching 60, Tom Cruise is in his 60s, and no one talks about their age and them being in 8 Mission Impossible movies or, you know, 10 plus Fast and Furious movies. So, but they're progressive, and they're saying a 51-year-old can't have her own franchise and start it forever. So it's kind of just, again, they're saying more about themselves than anyone else. And I feel like also then they probably just don't like long-running franchises, because so many franchises rely on a consistent, whether it's a character, a villain, or a protagonist. So it's kind of like, then maybe just you don't like franchise stuff. So I don't know what you're talking about. You're not making much sense. But going back to the whole Scream 8 of it all, I am sure they've had conversations about Scream 8. I'm someone who doesn't believe anything until I see it in Deadline or Hollywood Reporters. So while I'm pretty much can only guarantee that Scream 8 will happen, and they've had those talks, and they probably have a contract in place for Nev, I'm not going to even believe that it's 100% greenlit until we get an official report. It could be right before Scream 7, it could be right after, but I don't buy into, like, you know, this is happening until I see it on an official source. And I think that this is so special because for a Sidney story to continue in 8, people say that she has no story left. There's a new chapter of her life where she's a mother. Yeah. So we've seen Sidney fight for survival in all the movies, but now she's fighting for her children's survival. And you can flip it and say her children are fighting for their mom to survive. And then you have the whole theme of motherhood. The OG trilogy was about Sidney's mom, in that relationship. So it's a whole full circle moment here. So of course, there's plenty left to tell.
And not only that, but like, I was thinking about this today. And I don't know if this will make sense to you if you get it, but like, I was thinking about like how Sidney Prescott, there's Sidney Prescott, but now there's almost going to be like Sidney Evans. She's a whole new person now in a way. When you have kids and like, Sidney has kind of conquered her fears as it pertains to herself, and she's worked through her character development to kind of grow out of the victim into someone who isn't the victim, right? And now she gets to be kind of like she's starting at a ground zero again. She's grown over Scream 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 to be that person in Scream 5 that says, I'm bored, click. But now she's back. It's almost like giving her a kids and family, almost resets her in a way. It makes her scared again, and I think that is kind of the key to this new storyline with her. And, I have to say, I think it's a really good, I know that this is not like official written by Deadline. I get that. And I respect that.
Right.
I'm proceeding as though it is kind of confirmed because I think Daniel PRK, he gets it right. Maybe like 85% of the time. And I do believe this is what's happening. I think that it's actually a good thing that this is being circulated because it shows that that Scream 7 isn't going to be a passing the torch kind of movie because people kind of
that again.
Right. People try to say that Scream 4 is passing the torch. And I don't think Scream 4 ever was. Like, especially like, look at Act 2 of Scream 4. Act 1, you can kind of see it's very ensemble-y, but Act 2 of Scream 4 is literally all about Sidney and Gale. Like, literally, it's like the scenes at the hospital with Sidney and Gale. It's them going to the cinema club. It's Sidney at home with Jill and then making tea. It's Gale at the Stabathon. It's Kate's death. That is all Sidney and Gale. I don't think Scream 4 ever intended to, to be a passing the torch movie. That's part of like the hidden message of Scream 4. The torch was passed with Scream 5, sure, but that's because that's a whole can of worms. But I don't think. But like some people are saying, why would we have another passing of the torch movie? Why would Nev be there just to pass the torch again? And I think that it's good, right? Scream 8 is saying, by them saying Scream 8 is a Sidney story, we're getting it out of the way. Scream 7 is about Sidney, and we are proceeding, and we should treat it seriously that this is about her again.
I agree. I mean, Scream 4 is the anti-passing the torch movie. That's why Wes and Kevin are so brilliant. But when it comes to Scream 7, even though her daughter is, I would assume, also going to be front and center for this new trilogy or whatever, it's still her daughter. So Sidney is vital just as much. So it's not passing the torch. It's still her story because it's her family. So yeah, we already did the passing the torch for your little, Daniel Harris, Jamie Lloyd spinoff 2 movies. Now we're coming back to the bread and butter. So yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question just about the daughter of it all. So do you look at Isabel May and look at Neve Campbell and think, is it weird to cast someone blonde, who has a really deep voice? I don't know if you've seen Isabel May act. I saw her in a movie. Oh God, what was it called? It was about a school shooting, and she was phenomenal.
Run, hide, fight, or something like that, right?
Jenna Ortega. I would put her equal to Jenna Ortega's skills in the Scream 5 opening, if not better. Like, she is that good in that movie. But regardless, so but do you look at Isabel May and think, how can this be? How can she be Sidney's daughter?
When I first saw a picture of her, I was like, oh, that's an interesting pick. I don't know if I see it, but I started seeing clips of her more, and I don't know. I just feel like her energy and Nev's is going to match so well, and they're going to have really good chemistry. And I do think that Nev, of course, they probably did screen tests, but I do think that Nev also had a hand in picking who would be her daughter. So I do think I can buy it. I'm excited to see her because I haven't watched much of her stuff, but from what I've seen, she's a talented actress, and I think she's going to kill it. As far as the blonde stuff go, I mean, whatever, I can, get past anything, but I'm really excited to see how they interact.
Well, so I was kind of bent out of shape about the blonde. I'm not going to lie. And so Joey Velisi kind of set me straight because he is a very wise gay man. We love Joey Velisi. He told me that, especially because like you can you can probably guess that part of this storyline with the daughter is going to be like the butting heads of like Tatum wanting her freedom and Sidney being a controlling mom who knows better. Like that's obviously going to be part of the story. And I think like what they're going to show with Tatum is that she is the anti-Sidney. She couldn't be more different from Sidney. She's probably ballsier, louder than Sidney was. And Sidney was very meek and quiet and like very internal. Tatum is probably going to be the opposite of that. And how do you convey the total opposite of Sidney is by making her blonde when your mom is complete brunette, right? You have that like all that visual, like representation of the fact that they clash. So I think that like actually, when you think about it that way, imagine like this beautiful arc about, these two, about mother and daughter not understanding each other and kind of growing to understand each other through whatever happens in Scream 7. I think that's actually, I think it could be really beautiful for the story.
And I also think that maybe, that's a little homage if she is Tatum to Tatum Riley, and we have some Riley energy in Tatum, and Sidney can see like, oh, like maybe make a cameo. You remind me of my best friend from high school, your mommy. So it's a lot of, cool. That's a cool homage too. But I like the clash of that. She's not just a rip-off Sidney. She's not Sidney, which I don't want that either. I don't want a new version of Sidney. I want her to be her own character.
Right. In some way, like we got Jill. Jill had, Emma Roberts was blonde and they dyed her a brunette for Scream 4. So there you go. Okay, so let's move on now to, we had a rumor yesterday that Neve Campbell was going to be joining the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as Polaris, who is the daughter of Magento, aka Ian McKellen. In the upcoming X-Men project or Avengers Doomsday, there was a big rumor about this. And so speaking of, not believing shit until it's written in black and white by a establishment press, like Anthony just said, it turned out not to be completely true, but also not to be completely wrong. So it was announced that she's going to be voicing the character of Polaris in season 2 of X-Men 97, which is an animated series. So Anthony, what are your thoughts?
When I saw that, again, I don't comment because anyone can post anything. I'm not saying that people don't have inside knowledge, but I never believe anything until I see it from a source. But I am so happy for Neve to get she's going to be part of the Marvel franchise. Again, I fell off, like when I saw it, I'm like, oh, that's cool. But like, I unfortunately fell off from the MCU a while back. I felt like homework to keep up with it, but I did enjoy I loved the X-Men movies, so I was like, oh, I can go see the X-Men movies now with Neve. But I think it's great for her. Voice acting is awesome, and I think that she has that unique voice too, so if she is in X-Men 97, that would be awesome to see. And again, it goes to show that Neve chooses what product she wants to be in, chooses when she wants to work. So again, that rumor is put to rest that she can't get any other work from Scream, because not only did she turn down Scream 6, but she's in other projects. So yeah, shut up, she's here.
And even before Scream came back, she was in House of Cards. Like House of Cards, it was a huge show. She's in The Lincoln Lawyer. She's fine. But in regards to this, I think it's cool. I think it's fun. It doesn't really so like Sarah Michelle Gellar, she has done almost exclusively voice work for the past 10 years. So I think it's cool for her, and I'm sure this is something that her kids can watch and be like, oh yeah, that's my mom. Right. So I love that for Neve, and I think it's so. Apparently the creator or the director or the writer, whomever it was, went to Twitter and he confirmed this yesterday. And
he's very nice about it. Yeah.
But he said that he picked her because he was looking for somebody who embodied the late 90s vibe or something, and because it's called literally X-Men 97. So what happened in 97? Scream 2 came out. So
oh, yeah.
I think it's so cool that Neve was thought of for that reason. So I think it's great news.
And that also goes to show, again, everyone, how big Neve Campbell was in the late 90s and early. Not that she's not big now, but when she was at the height in that age bracket, she was the Jenna Ortega plus, times 2 of that era.
Exactly. All right. So next up, in addition to Scream 8 and being announced it's been in Production Weekly, and we know that Production Weekly can sometimes be right, sometimes be wrong, whatever. But most of the time, it kind of skews correctly. So, but also listed in Production Weekly was a new Halloween film, and I know what you did last summer. 5. So Anthony, what are your thoughts? Let's just pretend that this is is true. Right. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, again, I will believe it when I see it in the trades. But as far as Halloween goes, again, Halloween is my favorite movie, the OG. It's my second favorite franchise. Always said that after Halloween ends, I know I'm not stupid. Mike, it's gonna come back. The franchise is very profitable. So I just was always hoping they would take a break from the movies until 2028 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Halloween. So I'm hoping that it's in the early stages and they don't rush to do a movie, because we really still need time to settle, because Halloween Ends was a definitive ending. So I just hope they take their time and think of something cool and unique for 2028. I was one of the people who really wanted them to do, if they were going to do a TV show, a series, I wanted them to take the Season of the Witch approach for the series and then keep Michael Myers on the big screen. So if it's a movie, let's have Michael on the big screen. If they want to do a show, let's have it be Season of the Witch. Like with Marvel stuff, I think when you start getting, we'll talk about Scream again later with Kirby, but when you start intertwining streaming shows and theatrical releases, it does sometimes seem like homework. I don't want it to diminish my favorite two franchises, so I hope that they just know what they're doing. And I think the way to go, if they're going to do streaming, is kind of that anthology Season of the Witch and just keep Michael separate on the big screen, because you don't want it to get too convoluted. We see, Marvel is in a little bit of a rut now, so I don't want Scream or Halloween to turn into that.
Well, and my thing is, like, I think it's different when you have like one show and then one timeline for the movies versus like what Star Wars and MCU did, which was like dozens of shows and dozens of movies and dozens of characters. Like that is too much. It's exhausting. I think it could work for having Sidney movies and Kirby TV show for Scream, but whatever. I love your idea of Season of the Witch. Like, why not just do Season of the Witch as a TV show for Halloween? Like, I think that would be, just the same storyline, or like, I just to start out and then kind of branch out after that. I'm happy about the Halloween, and I know she did last summer. I mean, in terms of Halloween, I do agree with you. I would prefer them just to let it cool a little bit. Give us at least 5 years with separate from Ends to whatever's next, because it will be without Jamie Lee Curtis, which is very sad. But you know what? We have to move on, I guess. I know what she did last summer. It doesn't surprise me. I want it to happen, and I want it to be not only, I know she did last summer, and a continuation of whatever we see in a couple of months. I want it to be about Julie James. I want Julie James to have the stepped up role that she deserved in this requel that we're getting, and that probably didn't really happen. So I hope that however it goes down, that Julie gets a bigger part in 5. So
I could not agree more. We know and thank you to the trailers for not like tricking us. We know that she's a supporting role in the new movie coming out, but when you see the trailer, it doesn't fully feel like I Know What You Did Last Summer until she comes on screen. And when she comes on screen, everyone's like, it's back. Like, so I got chills. I mean, the line was cheesy, but she delivered it and owned it, and I love it. And I really hope, even in an interview, she said it's like a passing of the baton. I'm like, oh, here we go again. But I really hope that she's heavily involved in the third act and it's almost thrown back to her at the ending of the movie, and then she's ready to take center stage with whoever's left over, from the newer cast. But it really needs, she is just as much as part of the DNA of I Know What You Did Last Summer as the Fisherman, much like, Laurie and Michael, Sidney and Ghostface. So I really think that you can't underestimate the character of Julie James. She's one of my favorite final girls, so I really hope that she has a big, big, big role in the sequel if they, officially do it.
If not, just give her the co-lead. Give her, let it be 50-50, or let it be just all about her, who knows? So, okay. Next up, we have a very spicy kind of topic. So I guess Anthony is like my new person to like, whenever it's time to like kind of be, to hold Jenna Ortega's feet to the fire. It's, I guess Anthony's my guy. So it was announced last week that Jenna Ortega is joining David O. Russell's new movie about Pool, Pool, with Robert De Niro. So Robert De Niro and Jenna would be the leads, and David O. Russell is writing and directing. So I just want to give everybody a quick summary of like David O. Russell. He is a very controversial filmmaker. He has been known to have like anger outbursts on set, that he's very difficult to work with, and that he is very hard on his actors. There's video footage of him and Lily Tomlin going at it in the 90s. Very vicious, very unprofessional behavior on a movie set. He made Amy Adams really emotionally like a wreck when they were making American Hustle about 10 years ago, so much so that he and Christian Bale almost got into a fist fight because of how mean he was being to her. So he has been known to be a very controversial person. A lot of people online, a lot of like, we'll call him an abuser, which is, I don't know if that's necessarily true, because like when you say abuser, you think sexual, you think physical like violence, right? As opposed to just yelling. And regardless, so David O. Russell, he used to be kind of like the poster boy. He had a big comeback. He made The Fighter with Christian Bale, which Christian Bale and Melissa Leo won Oscars for. He made made Silver Linings Playbook with Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence won the Oscar for that. She won Best Actress. He made American Hustle. He got 4 of his actors nominated, including Amy Adams, Amy Adams is like in American Hustle, one of my favorite performances of all time. And then he made Joy, which got Jennifer Lawrence yet another Oscar nomination, which is one of my favorite movies. I love American Hustle and Joy, and I love Silver Linings Playbook. So I really love his films. He is an actor-centric director. He gives his actors a lot of opportunities, a lot of meatiness. Like those 4 movies that I listed, I bet let's see, almost like 12 acting nominations at the Oscars just with those 4 movies. That is a lot. That is a shit ton. Most directors don't even get 5, right? In prolific directors, so I mean that's a lot. So the actors like to work with him, and they often put up with his abusive behavior because of the opportunities that it gets them. So but he was canceled by people online and by these articles that came out, and so he hasn't really made movies since Joy, and he had a really hot moment, but he hasn't really in the past 10 years. He had a show that was canceled. He had a movie that came out with Christian Bale and Margot Robbie, and ironically Taylor Swift was in it, and it did horribly. And the online people were especially hard on it because it was him. They didn't want him to succeed, like the online critics, right? So now here we are. He cast Jenna Ortega in his movie with Robert De Niro, and so I mean this is a big deal, and it led to a lot of online discussion about Jenna taking this part, especially because so many people were so hell-bent on the idea that Jenna stood in solidarity with Melissa against evil studio filmmaking by not being a part of Scream 7. And I just wanted full disclosure, how I kind of got my start in the industry of podcasting and writing about film was through Joy. I wrote this big piece on Joy, and it was this on the website called Awards Daily, and it was my huge breakthrough moment. So I'm very I have a very unique place with David O. Russell, so I'm just putting that all on the table here. So Anthony, what are your thoughts on Jenna Ortega joining David O. Russell's new movie?
Yeah, I mean, I always I'm not the moral police. I always try to separate the art from the artist. I absolutely love The Fighter and Silver Linings Playbook, and I really, really, really enjoy American Hustle. And I think Joy is underrated. I know that that didn't, it was kind of a disappointment to some, but I'm it was awesome. Jennifer Lawrence killed it. As far as the people, the moral police, again, it just narratives crumbling, Scream's evil, but yeah, everyone else do, follow whoever else, but just Spyglass has the only evil person. But as far as Jenna Ortega taking it, again, she's making her own choices, but I do think that they're just so fascinating. I feel like the choices that she makes. Whereas I feel like Jennifer Lawrence, even in each one of David O. Russell's movies, she feels like a completely different character. I love Jenna Ortega. She's a great actress, but I've only seen Jenna Ortega do Jenna Ortega.
Yeah.
I haven't seen her do more than one.
Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping that if she maybe is doing it to play a completely different character, because she is this is no shade, she is no Jennifer Lawrence. Like I said, Jennifer Lawrence is Mystique, Katniss, and then she's all these different, even in the 2 David O. Russell movies, she's completely 2 different characters. So I'm not going to judge anyone for taking a role. I think it's interesting that after everything, everyone's so high and mighty that she is taking a role in a David O. Russell movie, because again, I don't think he's convicted, but there were allegations of other stuff too. But again, he's just, an evil, whatever, I don't want to say evil dude, but he's a harsh dude to work with. I mean, you're making Amy Adams cry on set saying she'll never work with him again. So, but I think it's interesting. Again, I'm not going to judge her. I'm interested to see the role. I hope it is something different than the typical role she plays. So yeah, I mean, do what you want, Jenna Ortega, but let's see how it plays out.
So let's flash back to the last episode Anthony was on.
Yeah.
And we talked about Jenna Ortega and kind of her motives and how she seen. It's my opinion that Jenna didn't want to do Scream 7 from the get-go because she thought she was better than Scream 7 and that she wanted to be on the Oscar track. She wanted to be on the Mikey Madison winning an Oscar track. She thought she was above Scream. And to me, when you take that side by side with doing a David O. Russell movie, it's very odd to me. I think that she really does want to be the next Jennifer Lawrence. I think she wants to be that overnight sensation. She wants to be winning Best Actress like Mikey Madison did. I think that it's weird that she would go with David O. Russell. It almost seems like a sign of desperation. Again, if she is so popular and she is so in demand, why go with a man who is so controversial and so poisonous to his most recent projects? His most recent projects the critics haven't given them a fair shot because it's David O. Russell. And if people post nice things about David O. Russell, they get attacked as being enabling a misogynist or blah, 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 blah. It seems to me it's almost a sign of desperation. But at the same time, it's weird, right? Because Jenna gets a good meaty part from David O. Russell, possibly awards consideration, possibly winning awards for it. And at the same time, she helps David O. Russell's image because she is like this young, woman of color who people generally have good feelings toward. She almost helps his image rehabilitate him as like fallen artist in a way. So it's a very weird marriage between them in terms of like this project. But I will see it. I'm looking forward to it. I think it will be very cool. I'm very intrigued by what they can do together.
Yeah, my least favorite thing about any actress who like gets their start in something that catapults them to fame, and then they kind of like, they don't bash it, but I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis learned her lesson. I would say even to an extent, Neve Campbell learned her lesson. They embraced their horror roots. Like, yeah, this is mine, and I'm gonna own it, and I love it. I don't like when actors like really blow up, and the genre that made them famous, they kind of turn their back. I'm not even saying just with her with Scream. I almost feel like she's also trying to be like, I don't want to be Wednesday forever. Let me break out and try to do something different. So again, I don't blame her for doing that, but don't look down on what made you famous. And again, she's going up against fun, cheesy horror franchise this weekend, and I don't hear anyone. I will go see that movie she's in, but I don't really hear much buzz or anyone talking about that. I mean, Final Station's gonna slaughter that at the box office. Hurry Up Tomorrow, whatever it's called. So,
oh wow,
yeah.
So she's gonna have another Death of a Unicorn flop. Oh my god.
But again, I will watch her in that movie, and I hope the best for her. But like you said, I hope she does something unique, and don't bash. Don't like try to like. Don't be frowned upon what made you.
Yeah. That's a huge thing for me. And like, I will say, one of my friends said to me in a private text, and I won't say who it is, it said, in 10 years, Jenna's going to be attending the same conventions that everybody else does when after her moment in the spotlight kind of starts to dwindle, and she'll be signing pictures of Tara and Ghostface at those conventions. So it is what it is.
Just own it.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, let's move on now as we start to wrap up here. So we got a trailer this week for The Conjuring. It's called The Conjuring Last Rites. It's The Conjuring 4 with Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. It's the last movie that they're going to be in as Ed and Lorraine, and it's a big deal because the Conjuring universe was a huge thing for horror. I think the Conjuring universe kind of redefined horror in a lot of ways, whereas Halloween 2018 was very much just like the slasher genre. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on the new trailer, Anthony?
I really, really dug the tone and atmosphere of this new trailer, and just to see Ed and Lorraine, it does feel like, I love how it's like, see why this was their last case. I love that. I really was surprised. I know it was the same director who did The Conjuring 3 and The Curse of La Llorona and The Nun 2. Again, I wasn't as high on The Conjuring 3 as I was on the first two, but I know people like really they look down on this franchise too because it is just fun popcorn horror, which I love too. But I never disliked any of the installments. I don't think anything touches the quality of The Conjuring 2, and Annabelle Creation, but all of them have been like fun Friday night horror flicks, but this one does. I'm hoping it's either really good marketing, but it does look to be more in the quality of the first two Conjuring movies. So I'm really hoping that we get that. And it's just, they're one of the best horror couples along with Dewey and Gale. So it's really going to be fun to see them, go out, see what happens with them too. I don't know, is one of them gonna die, or is it they're gonna get their happy ending? I'm leaning toward them both making it out, and just I don't know how they're gonna exit stage, but it's gonna be cool to see, and it's been part of our lives since 2013. So this is a big moment for them. There's so many movies in the franchise, and I just hope that their time with the franchise goes out on a high note. And the trailer delivered to me. I thought it had some really unsettling, creepy scenes.
Yeah, it was. I thought the trailer was really nicely photographed, and my hope is that it focuses on the Warrens as much as possible.
Right.
So, and I love the first two movies. I actually enjoy the franchise. I enjoy going through the different movies, even if there's varying quality. I really enjoy the universe of The Conjuring. So, and I actually think that they're both going to die. So,
oh, I like that take. Oh, let's get dark. Okay.
Yeah. So we will cover this in a Ryan's Reviews segment. And Anthony, if you just want to be on that episode with me, let's just book this now. Okay. So September 5th, everybody. Okay. So there are some more sequel news I just want to run through real quick. So Alien Earth, which is the Hulu TV series covering Alien, that's going to premiere on Hulu on August 12th. Anthony, thumbs up, thumbs down?
Thumbs up. We have Timothy Olyphant coming in the Alien franchise. I believe the writer-director did the Fargo series, so I'm very interested and fascinated by this. I cannot wait to check it out. It's going to be dark, I feel like, so I'm excited.
Yeah, there is some legitimacy to this this TV show as opposed to others. So I mean, again, Timothy Olyphant, we're going to be covering Alien, and plus, like,
that's what I'm saying.
There's a marriage too between like Ellen Ripley and like Laurie Strode and Sidney Prescott and Gail Weathers. So I love Alien. So Practical Magic 2 with Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock. And I am a huge Nicole Kidman fan. So this is so cool that she's doing a horror sequel. And that was in the from the 90s. What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. The original is so charming to me. And again, Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock together in a movie, sequel or not, count me in. I'll be there.
And last but not least, Evil Dead 6, which is allegedly called Evil Dead Burn, is coming out July 24th, 2026. Anthony, what are your thoughts?
I am so excited for this new Evil Dead installment. My favorite Evil Dead is a 2013 reboot, and the director of this one is making some, again, I know you have to hype your own movies, but he's making some quotes saying like, I want people to feel exhausted physically and mentally when they leave the theater, and I'm ready to get a super dark, messed up Evil Dead movie. So I'm super, super stoked for that. I can't wait. I love that franchise is kind of thriving again after Evil Dead and Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah, me too. And again, it's just nice to have both Practical Magic and Evil Dead 6 coming out, because it's like things to look forward to. Like, yeah, we have Scream 6, but I'm sorry, Scream 7, but like, you know, we have these other things too. And plus, like, for instance, like I can do an audio commentary about, you know, Practical Magic. I could do something about Evil Dead. So it'll be fun for the podcast too. So yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. And I did enjoy Evil Dead Rise. So yeah. Okay, Anthony, thank you so much. I got to run, but this was a really fun news segment, and it was fun to we did the first news segment with Justin from Epic Film Guys, and now we're doing the second one with you. It was so much fun.
Thank you, Prime. I cannot wait to do it again. I love talking news and Scream.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this next segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers, and I'm sitting here with Tim Winn. Tim is the composer of Final Destination Bloodlines. Tim, I have to ask, you know, what are your thoughts on the overall product of Final Destination Bloodlines?
I think it's brilliant. I've been connected with it for almost 3 years now, seeing all sorts of scripts, all sorts of changes and what have you. So seeing the final product on Monday and at the world premiere was amazing. I mean, they did a fantastic job.
Well, that's awesome. So can I ask, like, first of all, like you said that you've been attached for 3 years. So how did you get attached in the first place?
Kind of as one would do, you scroll through Twitter and you see that they're making one of your favorite horror franchises. They're remaking it with 2 directors that you've worked with in the past. And so I sent them an email and just said, you know, have you found a composer yet? And they haven't even started looking hard, but they would be willing to think of me. And I said, well, I need, you know, this is sort of my dream job. Like, I really want to show everybody at New Line and the producers of Final Destination that I was the right person for the job. So I said, let me write you some music for Final Destination. I'll write you a new theme. I'll write you a bunch of, you know, hypothetical scenes and see what you think. And they really fell in love with my new direction for it, and that's when the movie came my way.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. So, you know, I've noticed that you do a lot of horror work. How would you say you are defined, like your career is defined by working in horror? Because I see a lot of horror on your resume, and I've seen, actually, I'm a Supernatural fan, so I've seen your work there. I love that. So tell me about your connection with the horror genre.
Well, you said it's defined by this. You know what? My resume is clearly undefined because I have so many I kind of bounce from project to project, which kind of keeps me fresh for all sorts of genres. I feel like I'm a classical composer in that sort of way where say the Jerry Goldsmith would you know, go from Rambo to Omen to Poltergeist to all these sort of things like that. So if I was going to pick a mold, that's kind of what I sort of fit into. Now, you're right about horror though. I did start off doing a little bit of mild horror to begin with, and then 15 seasons of Supernatural. Legends of Llorona was a horror movie that I worked on as well. So yeah, I've definitely been in the genre throughout the years for sure.
Well, so going off of that, so you mentioned that you are a fan of Final Destination. So let's dig into that, because that, like, you know, people like my listeners and like just general horror fans like these days, especially like those within like a franchise, right? We love the movies that came before. Like, that's part of like the hook, and that's the hype that we have for the new movie. So tell me about your history with Final Destination and like what your thoughts are on the franchise before Bloodlines.
Well, it sort of starts, I think, as everyone did with Final Destination 1. You didn't know what to expect at that point, right? It's the first one. You see them on the airplane, you know there's something wrong. He wants to get off. Everyone's arguing, and then boom, the plane blows up. And I think it kind of had me from that moment on. I loved the wickedness of death, how it, was going through all the characters and killing them. And I like the overall vibe of the horror franchise because to me, it had like a quality about it. Not that other movies maybe don't have that quality, but it just had like kind of a fun aspect to it that like, I don't know, the other movies that it wasn't just slicing off heads or this and that. It wasn't just murder for murder's sake. There was like a plan to it, and I liked seeing how Death's plan unfolded throughout the movie.
So, can I ask, how do you like? So you mentioned the theme and like how your update to the theme of Final Destination, like you kind of your own spin on what you did with the music here. So, from the time, just curious, like as just like an observer of film, how did the theme that you sent the directors to begin with? How much did it change from that initial track to the movie we just saw?
Not at all, really.
Oh, really?
No, I guess I was feeling really inspired, and I wanted the theme to have a very menacing quality to it, and I wanted it to be sort of slow, repetitive in a way where it's just like it was inevitable. You knew that death was going to get you no matter what. So the 5-note motif that I came up with, Zach, Adam, the producers Craig and Sheila Taylor, they just loved it. It really, other than adding a little bit here and there, my original demo sounds pretty much just like the movie.
Well, that's awesome. I think that's so cool. So you had like a really cool idea, or like, at least a defined idea that went into the film. So can I ask, how does it work with like composers generally? Do you get a script, or do you, in terms of like, molding what you think the score should be, do you take notes from the director? How does that work? And how did it work in this case?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the above. I love as much information as anybody could give me. It was great for the heads of New Line Cinema Music, Aaron Scully and Jennifer O'Malley, to get me the script immediately as soon as I got hired. I got to go through the script so many times. My favorite moment in the script was reading that Bloodworth was coming back. And so it was this little secret that I had in me with Tony Todd's appearance on it. So I love that. I love that aspect of it. And you just get inspired just reading the words. And so I just started writing a lot of music. I'd already written the theme, so I knew that. So now it was about specific scenes. And there was moments where Stephanie was driving to Iris's compound, and the script was very descriptive of her compound about there was this found metal and pots and pans and kind of a junkyard feeling to it. So I really wanted to kind of create that sort of vibe as well. So I started early on that. While they're filming, I started seeing the dailies immediately. I was kind of blown away by the dailies, to be honest with you, because they did so much practical effects that the whole sequence in the sky view, it looked brilliant from the get-go, just from the first just assembly of the picture. So I knew we were on to something special when I saw the dailies. I'm like, I did not think it was going to look this good whatsoever. I thought I knew special effects were going to be involved with it, but it wasn't nearly to the degree that that other movies have had.
Right. Now, and that's something I noticed. Like the thing that I noticed whenever I saw the film is just like how different I would say the narrative is in the way that the script is structured, and how the script is kind of, it takes the Final Destination template and formula and kind of chops it up and restructures it, for lack of a better phrase. And I found that to be very interesting. So how did you take what you knew about Final Destination and kind of transform it into something very modern? Because this movie was bringing back Final Destination after, almost 15 years. So, I mean, that's kind of a heavy cross to bear. So could you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I've kind of had both worlds in the modern and the original. I was a big fan of what Shirley Walker did with the original theme. So we wanted to highlight that somewhere in the script. We didn't know exactly where, but we wanted to put it somewhere in the script. And it turns out that when you see Tony Todd and Bloodworth for the first time, we referenced her theme to it. And I feel like the fans of Final Destination, well, if they don't remember the theme exactly, I think they'll feel something visceral about it. And so I was trying to give some deferential treatment to the original movies, have some callbacks, and have it feel like a Final Destination project. But then I wanted to add more of the modern sensibility of scoring and sound design and all these little things to it. So I kind of crossed the thresholds of of what Shirley Walker did, what the next composer Brian Tyler did, which he added a very modern approach. So I kind of have both sets of elements in my score, I would say.
Right. Well, you name dropped Brian Tyler. So Brian, I'm very familiar with Brian Tyler. I've met him. He did the scores for Scream 5 and 6, which are very cool. And I mean, there's a lot of Scream 5 in Final Destination Bloodlines, not necessarily like in the score per se, but like definitely in the structure and the approach. So, it's I definitely appreciate it from that respect. So can I ask, just as like a horror movie guy myself, so did you look to movies like Scream 5 and 6 or like the new Halloween movies with Jamie Lee Curtis? Did you look at any modern horror slashers or horror movies in general to kind of draw inspiration from to kind of match the modern moment? Or did you intuitively know what you wanted to do? Or how did that process work?
Well, I think I would say if any of the inspiration I got from it, I kind of liked, and I don't know if you even describe it as a horror, but like A Quiet Place.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean,
yeah.
I guess it has elements, and I felt like this script, horror has so many nowadays, and you mentioned Scream as well. There's the scary parts, of course, but then there's the funny parts and this and that. So I really wanted to have everything be a part of it because I like, and it's not exactly, again, not a horror movie, I would say, but Signs, older movie back in the day. But that sort of just like propulsive sort of energy that you would get from the score, and for the longest time in that movie you don't see the alien, and then the music just kind of gets you up, and finally on the TV, just I don't know what it was, that scene, especially in Signs, unnerved me, and it was because of how the score really treated it, and it was just building you up, building you up, building you up. So I guess for me to put it in one word was what I like about scores, and some of the scores that we had mentioned is the propulsion aspect of it, and to bring in rhythmical aspects to really kind of pump up the kind of ticking clock mentality. So you just, there was always some action kind of going on, and not that my score has nothing but propulsion the whole time, but when it's called for, I really leaned on it heavily.
Well, it's funny you say that because like the key to Final Destination is, in my opinion, I've done extensive research on Final Destination for the past month. I just did like an audio commentary of like the original film, so I kind of like tried to like engross myself in like the lore and the history of the franchise and kind of like understand the franchise, which is what made kind of like this interview and like seeing the film early, like such a cherry on top of this month.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, the two things that like are key to the Final Destination franchise are, one, the opening scene, right? Scream is known for the Drew Barrymore opening, right? But I feel like with Final Destination, it's even more important because it's like so interconnected to the rest of the movie, and it features the main characters. So there's that, but then there's also, in acts 2 and 3, meeting the new characters and like going through the anxiety building micro scenarios of like, ooh, is this what's going to get them? Is that what's going to get them? And it just builds and builds, and that Final Destination plays with when are they going to get it and how. So could you speak to, you talked about like you used the word propulsion and kind of like described it a little bit, but like did you have a difference in your approach between the opening scene and then like the rest of like the kind of like micro scenarios that I described? And how did you feel about tackling like each of those tasks?
Yeah, I think the opening scene, I went from a really classical approach because you open the movie, you're in the late 1950s. They did a brilliant job of using the Isley Brothers song "Shout" through it, and one of my favorite songs from the 50s. So it was great to score with that. So I tried to keep a kind of a very straight approach during that. I tried to evoke a little bit of the 50s, 60s with my approach and I don't know how much spoilers we're supposed to say at all, but there is maybe, some more romantic moments at the top. So I tried to be a little bit over the top and how would a composer from the 50s and the 60s score the scene. So I tried to evoke a little bit of that. When you go through the other scenes as well, I tried to make each one of the sequences that if they're going to die or if they're not going to die feel organic to the moment that they're in. So there is a moment maybe later in Act 5 where there could be medical devices involved and or not, depending on things. And so what I tried to do is evoke a sound of mechanical noises, infusing it in the score along with the orchestra that was going, so that it just everything had every death, every fake out death, everything that kind of tension builders was very unique to its own scene.
Right, right. Well, I think that you really did a great job. Like I walked away from Final Destination Bloodlines like with many opinions, but like one thing that stood out to me as a really memorable part of the film, or in a very strong part of the film from a critical perspective, is the way that your score is interlaced with the sound design. Because I mean, the sound design and the score and what the movie sounds like has always been important to Final Destination, because there's always been this actiony component with the big opening scene, and then as we go through the film, right, you have like those, it's kind of like an immersive experience, like in terms of like, is the glass of water that just got knocked over, is that what's going to kill the teacher, or is it going to be the knife? So I think that those two things combined really are technically sound and savvy. So I think that you have a lot to be proud of when it comes to your score and everything you did with the music here. But I think that like the sound design, the sound editing mixed with your score is really, really effective. So I was just curious, like, how does one balance score over sound effects, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's something that we talked to the sound designer, Jeremy, on this movie, kind of talk about who's going to take the lead in this scene or not. So we're always kind of battling of which is more important, the score or the sound design. And I'm always happy to be differential to it, because I think everyone on this film throughout, seeing it, the whole process, everybody from New Line, I mean, literally everybody, all we were doing was trying to make the best film possible. So we were leaving no stone, turned when it came to, let's try this idea. What about this idea? Let's try this. Let's try this. So we would try it sometimes. Let's have the music drive it. And sometimes let's do the sound design, drive it. And then we would, play around with it. Which do we like better? Which is more effective? Which tells the story better? I mean, literally that's all we did for months and months and months and months of how we can make the best movie, for the fans, really. And I remember seeing it early. We had an early test screening, and they invited all, Final Destination fans, and the notes that they had were brilliant, and it just reinforced what we were doing. We were already, pretty much, we didn't change too much from the test screenings at all. I mean, it really, a couple seconds here, 2 seconds there, minor little editing, tightening up stuff, but nothing changed dramatically at all. So we knew we had something special on our hands after the test screenings that were coming back so positively.
Well, that's awesome. So, okay, so I have, whenever I have people, because I've interviewed like the below the line people, like the editors, cinematographers, composers, right? So people want to know, just because like this gives fans anxiety. And again, like I'm a Scream guy, I'm not necessarily like a Final Destination guy, but I imagine there's a similar through line. Like people want to know, so if there is another film, if there's a 7, right? Will you be there, or would you like to return if given the opportunity?
I mean, I would love to. Like I've told pretty much everybody that we worked on, I mean, it was an absolute dream team to work with. Everyone was so supportive, Zach and Adam, the directors, were absolutely brilliant. Craig and Sherry, the producers, were, again, really amazing. It sometimes can be difficult in other movies that you work on when there's so many voices and you get pulled a lot of different directions. But this was not the case here. We were a very close-knit team. We all worked together. We all just had, I mean, from my perspective, I don't want to put words in everyone else's mouth, but it was a once in a lifetime experience. If I could join the team again, I would be thrilled to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, and I just think it's so cool that I'm like, I said that I'm a big Supernatural fan, so it's just cool to be sitting here, like, with somebody who worked on that show. So I think that's so awesome. So before we go, I have a question for you, and it's not about your work in Final Destination Bloodlines, but it's about composing in horror films. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but Scream 7, Marco Beltrami is returning to score this film. He hasn't done a movie since, he hasn't done a Scream movie since Wes Craven with Scream 4, so he did the original trilogy, and fans have just revere that music in the original trilogy. So for him to come back is really, really cool for us. So I don't know. Do you, what are your thoughts on Marco Beltrami's score for Scream?
I mean, again, I think it's amazing. I think he's the top. I was going through thinking about my journey in horror and where did it start? Who were the composers that I really looked at, and Jerry Goldsmith would be the person that I look back and with The Omen and some of the other films that he did in the 80's, Chris Young. But I feel like Marco Beltrami is the one that sort of through that whole line would be sort of the next person that you should have on. They were talking Mount Rushmore. Marco Beltrami would be on it because he's done just an amazing job throughout the years, and having him come back to Scream, I think that's great. I didn't know that actually.
Yeah.
I think you guys are in for a treat because having him come back, and again, if Shirley Walker was alive, I'm sure she would have been involved in this one. And speaking of, a last little bit about Shirley Walker. When we were recording the score, I didn't realize we're recording at Warner Brothers at the Eastwood scoring stage, and at the end of the first day, someone came up to me and he said, "Hey, my name is Ian Walker."
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, Ian Walker. Are you Shirley's son? And so he's a great double bass player. Didn't realize that he was on the session at all, but he was part of the movie as well. So I felt like there was this, I don't know, perfect Venn diagram of all sorts of things happening in the universe that day. Tony Todd lost his life just recently of it. And I mean, there's just, having him there was such a blessing. And me being part of the franchise through the lineage of Shirley Walker and Brian Tyler and myself, I'm just super blessed.
Well, it makes me happy to hear that. And like the Tony Todd scene was by far like the most emotional moment in the film. Like I wasn't expecting it to be what it was. And I thought it was handled very classy, and I think that the music underneath, that you put there definitely aided the power of that scene. So
yeah, no, thank you. I mean, for me, the people that are going to listen, that was my favorite scene of the whole movie. It was the most important scene to me. I mean, yes, there's always going to be thrills and deaths and this and that. Of course, there's going to be, but to get that moment right was 100% what I wanted to do. And after when we were recording it, me and the producers and the directors, we all kind of shared a moment, gave each other a hug, kind of cried a little bit. So I knew I had it right when it caused that emotion, and that when I hear it, and the reviews are starting to come out, and people are talking about that scene specifically and how much they move it. They don't always say about the score was so amazing or whatever, but when you say that you were moved by that scene and it's so special, what people that you don't realize you're listening to music when you are listening to the music, and that I feel like I succeeded at what I wanted to do, and which is to bring the great Tony Todd his last screen performance and underscore it and give him a send off that he deserved.
Yeah, well, isn't that like kind of like the ironic thing about your job is like the music to movies is so important. Like movies would be like it's wild what movies would be without music or without proper music. And yet whenever you're watching a movie, especially for like the first time, it kind of, for a lot of people who aren't like trained in film, it can easily wash over them where they don't really even recognize what they're listening to. But it's almost 100% reason that people react emotionally because of the power of the music. Like I think about again Marco's score for Scream, and like how many people would have watched scenes with Sidney in Scream 3. Not that you would know the specifics here, but like how the emotion that it evokes, and like you take that away, it's just like so much. Yeah. It doesn't have the same meaning. And with your film, like again, I can't. Like, I mean, sure. Would there be the anxiety prone like opening and the suspense that you build throughout the film with like the different set pieces? I think that there would be something that would be lost if you didn't nail it. So I just want to congratulate you on your work here. I think it's so cool for your career, and like just seeing like that kind of the trajectory of your career. And I hope that you do get to come back for 7 and however long that these two directors are here, however long you want to stay. And I hope you have a really wonderful career after this.
Thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone gets to see it in the theater, because I think it's much more powerful seeing it in the theater than waiting it for streaming, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And they will.
Yeah.
Horror people, they are very excited for this. And it's it's also because like you get like I said, like you should feel very like proud that you kind of got to bring back the franchise, like, and this is like there's gonna be a whole new generation of like young people who are seeing this is their first Final Destination movie, and they're gonna hear your score. And even with Shirley and Brian's scores, in history, like you kind of get to make a huge mark on that. So again, congratulations.
Thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to Friday.
Awesome. All right, everybody go see Final Destination Bloodlines and let me know what you think. And let me know what you think of the music. Pay special attention to the music here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. We are covering even more news. But are we out of the woods for more news, Ash? I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think we'll ever be out of the woods. And I feel like we should always just be ready for it.
Yeah, I don't think we're in the clear yet. Anyways, so welcome, Ash.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to chat about what we're chatting about today.
Okay, cool. Well, so also joining me and my producer, Ashley from Scroll and Spud, is another friend of mine, dear friend of mine, but also content creator. It's so fun to say that about this guy now because like I knew him before he did any of this stuff. Well, I mean, he was doing it, but just not on social media. So everybody, please welcome my friend, Justin. He is the Haunted Mansion aficionado.
Ryan, you made me blush.
So, okay, Justin, I know you were on the show like in September and you talked about your Haunted Mansion stuff. But I feel like you have gotten even bigger since then because like before it was just TikTok and now you're like on Instagram and you get just as many likes on your stuff that I do on mine. Even sometimes I'm kind of jealous. I'm like, wow, he's rocking over here and I'm sitting over here with lowly likes, So tell everybody what your shtick is.
Yeah, so I love Disney's Haunted Mansion. I have since I was a kid. The effects, the spookiness, it's a great gateway to horror. I don't know if it would... without that, if you would have me sitting here now. I'm on Instagram at Foolish Mortals and Happy Haunts, all one word. And Ryan is super supportive and shares my stuff and likes my stuff, and it means a lot to me.
I am so proud of you. Like, it is not easy to do this shit. It is not easy to post every day. It's not easy to get a following. It's not easy to keep a following. Like, so I am like so proud that you have just kind of like shot up and you carved out. Like, so this is the key to being successful as a content creator is having a niche and like sticking to the niche and like, you expanding the niche to an extent, but like also like, I'm known as the Scream guy, right? Ashley's known as the Taylor Swift girl. You are the Haunted Mansion guy. And that is so cool. I love that for you.
Well, thank you. And actually it makes more sense now because I was trying to figure out how the Taylor Swift of it all came into play, but Ashley's the Taylor Swift girl. I get it now.
Well, she was the influence. So she was like, Ashley was like my friend who was the Swiftie who helped educate me. So I had all these questions. I went to Ashley and then, we just would talk for hours on voice memo. I was like, let's just, tie this to the podcast. This is fun. Well, so everybody please go follow Justin and follow Ashley, of course. But, he has some really, really cool stuff. Like I feel like you almost have like a full movie crew with you sometimes with the videos that you do. It's like, this is high production quality shit,
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot to me. Brian is the ultimate hype man. He makes me feel good every time I'm on the show. I wish I could make him feel as good every time. So everything you say about me, I could say right back to you. So that means a lot to me, though. Thank you.
Of course. All right. So Justin, last week you brought me some news. What was the news?
Yeah. So last week, the owners of Ghostface, which I believe is FunWorld, they mentioned that if the situation with the tariffs continues and carries on, there's a potential that they could go under. They could no longer be in business. So that was interesting to me. What do you think?
So this is very it's quite shocking. And it kind of hits home, right? I mean, like whenever you hear about the tariffs in the news and like you hear news people talking about stuff, it's kind of like elusive, right? And to hear it like about FunWorld, which a lot of us know about, a lot of people are FunWorld people, they're collectors and stuff. That's crazy, that the people who license it to the studio to use in Scream, like that they could be going out of business. And it's kind of like, what does that leave for, the future of Scream? I mean, in terms of Ghostface, I mean, they won't stop making the Scream movies, but like, the person who owns Ghostface will be up for grabs. And I guess that's kind of the lead in. So Justin, what about you?
So, it's very complicated and always has been. The rights to Ghostface, the rights to Scream. I'm sure fans have noticed there's never been Scream Funkos. There's never been Scream clothes, t-shirts. There's never been Scream dolls. There's never been Scream anything. And that's because the licensing is very complex. You see Ghostface stuff, but very rarely do you see Scream. And the reason that is because you have three issues. You've got the Scream license, you've got the likeness to the actors, and then you have the license to the Ghostface character itself. So all three of those things are very complex. Whenever a company, say like Fright Rags, which who I've talked to about this issue, I've messaged them. I was like, why don't we have Scream branded content or anything like that? And they said it was very complex to get, and they probably never would because it's all separate.
Right.
Because if they pay for the Scream license, all they have is basically the houses. Which I would buy a house that says Scream and it's Stumacher, or a shirt that says Scream with Stumacher's house, but not a lot of people would. So that's all they can really do with it. And then they've got to pay extra for the likeness of the actors. And then that doesn't even include Ghostface. So you don't get that.
Isn't it funny to me? It's so funny. Like Scream is such an expensive franchise, but no matter which way you look at it, it's because like to make the movies, right, with the different high profile actors like Nevin Courtney, who have been in 7 movies, right? So they expect a certain amount of money, plus the new actors. And like, then you have stuff like this where it's kind of like spliced up. Like it's very, no wonder Wes Craven said that it's very hard to make these movies. So, wow. But so that leaves the question, I'm going to open it up to both Justin and Ashley here, is what happens? Well, let's just say a FunWorld goes out of business. I don't think that they will. I think this was just kind of a comment that was floated out there like, hey, the tariffs could really hurt us. Hopefully they don't hurt us too bad. I think that FunWorld will still exist and they will retain the rights to Ghostface. But if they don't, let's just say the worst happens, my inkling is that it will be the rights to Ghostface, the brand will be bought by Spyglass or Paramount. That's the natural place. And like for the record, like I don't know, people like to, whenever like the stuff with Melissa happened, to use Jenna's word, the stuff with Melissa happened, right? Last year, everyone was saying, oh, Spyglass needs to sell the rights. And like the rights to Halloween for Blumhouse, they had an expiration date. It was like 5 years or 10 years or something. I don't believe that is the structure of the Scream rights to Spyglass. I think Spyglass owns Scream outright, with no expiration. I could be wrong about that. I don't know how to figure that out. Maybe I will someday. But if they own Scream indefinitely, permanently, it would make sense for them to own Ghostface too. Justin, what are your thoughts?
I think it would be a little weird if Spyglass got into the business of owning a brand. Mm-hmm. I think it would be more likely to be Paramount because they do a lot of marketing.
There you go.
I bet see easily that happening because, like you said, Spyglass does retain the rights to Scream. If that were to happen, I think we'd get a lot of Scream branded merchandise with Ghostface, and that would make me happy. Of course, I don't want to see anyone go out of business, especially not FunWorld, and they've been around for so long. But I have to be honest and say that I would love to have some Scream branded Funkos and shirts and things like that.
Yeah. Ash, what are your thoughts on all this?
Well, first I'll say, like, as a small business, tariffs really suck. I'm in Canada, so I definitely wasn't like hit by what I know a lot of other businesses are. But I think a lot of people don't understand that the way to manufacture products, and even like people be like, oh, just like make it in Canada or make it in the United States. Like there's some stuff that you just literally can't unless you're going to sell a keychain for $95. And like you can find places that have like ethical standards. They have good places in different around the world, and you're giving, like, I get one of my keychains made in a woman, she makes them for me and or helps me produce them, and she's like a smaller business. It's just one of those things where tariffs are a real struggle, and depending on how much product you've ordered, it can be ridiculous. Like I know a few of the people I follow, like we all follow each other, small businesses, and unfortunately, like a few of them have had to close because of this. Because they've ended up getting invoices for over like $11,000, which is something that a small business can't. That could be more than what they make in a year if they're just doing that for fun. But to talk about the Ghostface of it all, I don't know why. I really love brands that don't do too much merch. Like, to bring it back to Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift does a lot of merch. Don't get me wrong. She does a lot of merch. But you don't see Taylor Swift merch in Hot Topic. You don't see it everywhere. She owns the rights to all of her stuff. And she's the one who releases her own merch so that she knows the quality of it, what's being put out. And then she can make the money off of what she's done, which I personally respect because I think good for you. I'd love to find more Ghostface shirts or fun stuff, but there is something that I kind of love about Scream, that it is a little bit more niche. Like you don't see all of the craziness everywhere. And like, to be honest, if I had any hope in the world of what would happen, I'd be like, yo, Nev or like Matthew Lillard, all of you join together and make a company and buy this.
Again, I want to be clear. I am not I'm not like gleeful at the idea of FunWorld going down. I don't want it to go down. It's part of the Scream history. Scream fans
Absolutely
are very
not. I would
nostalgic.
be so sad.
But you know who could buy it? Is Courtney Cox. She has the resources to do it. I do think Justin's right, though. If it is bought, it's probably going to be bought by Paramount just because it makes more sense. Like, they're the distributor, so it makes sense. So, yeah. Okay, guys. I just wanted to give a little tease with that. But now we are going to talk about a song that you both really, really love, which, so Ash, what is the Taylor Swift song of the day?
The Taylor Swift song of the day is one of my all-time favorites. This is off of my favorite album of all time. This is track 6 on the best album in the world, 1989. If you are going to listen to it, make sure you listen to Taylor's version. This was produced by Taylor Swift and Jack Antonoff and written by both of them too. And the basic of this song is a relationship that there's always a little bit of anxiety of what is going on here. Are we ever going to get through like this hurdle of figuring out where we stand? If you are a Taylor Swift fan, you probably know who this song is allegedly about. You probably know a little bit more lore about it than we need to get into right now. But if you were like heading in one direction and you like took a really hard look and like you saw someone styled like really, really well, it might give you an idea of like who it's about, if that makes sense. Without saying who. I tried to say who.
Oh, you got it. I understood.
Yeah.
So, Justin, so the reason we chose this song is because you said this is one of your favorite songs. It's like in your top 3 songs. So how do you interpret this song? Like, why do you love it so much? What are you taking with it?
So Ashley touched on a lot of the notes I had. And in fact, I didn't really love the song until I heard the pre-Grammy performance, which I think Ashley was kind of hinting towards a little bit, because she talks about what it means before she sings it. And she talks about how, you know, in the relationship, it was always about, well, what's our next hurdle? What's our next battle to overcome? Are we out of the woods yet? And I love that because I relate to that so much. We've all had that toxic relationship where it's always, well, what is our next thing we're going to make it through? And also I love the lyric, the monsters turned out to be just trees. It's stunning. And, you know, oftentimes we think the world is a dark and scary place, but sometimes it's because we make it that way. And sometimes the monsters are just trees. And you can really tie this back to Scream if you really wanted to, because, I mean, with Sidney's life and all the monsters she's facing and the next hurdle she's got to push through, it really ties nicely into what you're doing here with the podcast.
And just tie it back to your favorite character, because we brought up monsters and making the monsters afraid of someone, oneself, Kirby. It's just interesting, like that's the phrasing that Kirby uses, right? Is like she wanted the monsters. She didn't want to be afraid of the monsters. She wanted the monsters to be afraid of her. And I would say that is also my favorite line of the song too, because like I definitely can relate to that. Like sometimes I build things up in my head to be like so much scarier or harsher, in a social level, not even in relationships, just like, you know, day to day, like, does this person like me? Did I do this wrong? Am I going to be mad? Is this person mad at me? Blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it's all just in my head, you know? So I think that's a really nice part of the song. And like, you know, I've heard that the song is kind of like the fact that she keeps repeating, are we out of the woods? Are we out of the woods? Are we in the clear yet? The fact that it's so repetitive is almost like a sign of the anxiety. Instead of having different lyrics, that it's the same over and over again. Ash, any thoughts?
Completely agree. If anybody has ever had anxiety, I feel like you can relate to this song. I remember one time I was so anxious and my boss was like, what are you anxious about? And I said, well, I was anxious earlier and now I can't remember what I was anxious about earlier. So I'm just anxious because I can't remember what I was anxious about. So I'm like, what am I forgetting? And she was like, if you're anxious because you forgot why you're anxious, like she was like, girl, are you all right? But that's how you feel like when you're in anxiety, is like, can I just get through this? And in this relationship that she's talking about, or Sidney's relationship, quote unquote, with Ghostface, I feel like she's kind of always thinking like, when is this going to end? When are we going to be done with this? And one of my favorite lyrics, which I can't really tie exactly to Scream, but I feel like it's just one of my favorites, is the rest of the world was black and white, but we were in screaming color. And it's just, I feel like that just describes when you are so intensely connected to somebody and the rest of the world maybe doesn't understand it, or like seeing the rest of the world like doesn't matter to you in those moments. And I mean, maybe that's how like the trio feels, like all of us are like in color and everybody's in black and white because like they just don't get what we've been through, or the core four could say the same. But this, I remember one of the reasons why I love this song is I was sitting on a bench with my friend and she was like, we were talking about 1989. And I said, I love Out of the Woods. And she was like, I mean, I like it, but like, I'm not really a big camping person. So I'm not sure like if I relate to it. And I was like, what? And she was like, it's about like being in the woods. I was like, no. Like, no, I think it's like more of like a metaphor. And then she listened to it again and was like, I don't know what I was thinking. But it's just one of those like memories that just sticks with me, because I feel like you can interpret songs however you want, and her taking it so literally made me so happy. But at the same time, like, that is what this is about, is like venturing into, like, if you're stuck in the woods and you can't get out, which would be a great horror movie. Maybe Sidney will be in the woods one day. But this song, I feel like it's also a song that if you're not a big Taylor Swift fan, I feel like you could really, really love it.
Right. It was a single. I think everybody knows the words. So there are some songs like, like Let It Go or Espresso or like, these big colossal songs, right, that we all know the lyrics to because we heard them, or like Shallow from A Star Is Born. We've heard these songs like thousands of times on the radio. I feel like Out of the Woods was definitely one of these songs back in the day. Justin, I want to pass it back to you.
Well, she said that the rest of the world was black and white, but we were in screaming color. And this doesn't really tie necessarily to Scream, but I've always wondered if, when she said screaming color, if she means red, because as you guys know, she always thought that red was the color of love until she met Joe and she realized love was actually true love. Productive love is actually golden.
I would say that Joe
A
is
true
actually...
Swiftie.
Yeah, I would say Joe is like actually gray. Like he's just like the color of like London on a gray, gloomy day. But yeah, I'm sorry. Like, so we can't get into it. But so, Justin, another thing I wanted to bring up to you is The Wizard of Oz, because whenever you're one of my resident Wicked people, and whenever they go through the woods, right, when they meet the Cowardly Lion, the poppies, and then after they get through the poppies, right, and they're going into like the Yellow Brick Road again toward the Emerald City, the song that kind of goes over their kind of jolly running to the Emerald City is
you're out of the woods, you're out of the dark, you're out of the night, step into the sun, step into the dark, step out of the light, something like that.
Yeah, but it's also very repetitive, right? It's they say out of the woods, and the fact that Dorothy and like her trio literally just left the woods, I think that there's a very obvious Wizard of Oz connection here. So
yeah, and Taylor loves The Wizard of Oz. Like, she references it quite a bit. Is it the Karma music video?
Yes.
In the Karma music video, she references it quite a bit. And I feel like you're onto something there, Ryan, because I feel like she loves that movie and that story. And I feel like she definitely could have been inspired by that.
Yeah. Well, so I just want to like kind of, as we kind of wind down here, Justin, is there anything else you want to say about Out of the Woods?
So it's 1989. It's my favorite Taylor Swift album. So again, me and Ashley have something else going for us. We're going to be besties for resties. I think follow me on Instagram today, which made me so happy. Best album. I'm a pop Swiftie. My husband is the real big Swiftie. He's like obsessed. He likes the Folklore, Evermore, Tortured Poets, whereas I'm more of a midnight 1989 lover Swiftie.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, I love that, and I hope that you bragged to him that you got to talk not only about Scream on a podcast, but you're also Taylor Swift, right? So we love that. But yeah, so I mean, like Out of the Woods, like it's funny because like it's not like Shake It Off or Bad Blood, which are very like dancey, but at the same time, it's the type of song I feel like you can put on for anybody and they get it, they are into it, they follow it. Whereas if you put on something from, the Torture Poets department, not everybody gets it or even wants to listen to it because it's so intricate. So, but at the same time, Out of the Woods has this really deep meaning that we talked about with both relationships, anxiety. There's a lot going on in this song that, yeah. So any final thoughts, Ash?
Yeah, I think also, like, I just wanted to say that this is like one of my favorite bridges of all time. I think that if you know the bridge to this song, that you're a good person. I mean, that might be an extreme taste. I mean, like a person I'd like. 1989 is such a fun album, and this song is a little bit edgier, and it's a little bit like a little grittier. I mean, it's definitely still pop, but also the music video for this song is so much fun. I feel like it's like Taylor has a lot of I know she like likes horror movies, so I feel like there's like a little bit of like a horror element through that music video of having like the girl goes through some shit in that music video.
Yeah.
She does. And one thing I also love about her is she does, like, if she's covered in mud, the girl's literally covered in mud. If she's covered in sparkles, she's literally covered in sparkles. Like, most of it's like not CGI or anything like that. And I feel like our Scream fans would appreciate that she goes like the extra mile to make sure that her music videos.
The music video reminds me of Grace from Ready or Not. I don't know if it's the blonde hair and like the skinny frame, but that like the mud that you kind of described and like the look and what she kind of goes through, that is like very much, Ready or Not in my mind. So, but yeah.
And she's the zombie version of Out of the Woods in we did it at the beginning. So tying it back to horror, Ashley, you were onto something. She definitely wanted that element in there. Okay, that's all I have to say.
No, I love it. So, oh my gosh. Well, guys, thank you so much for this little recording here and help rounding out the news and stuff. So, Ash, where can they find you online?
You can find me at Squirrel and Spud 9 on Instagram. There you'll find a link to my Etsy, which has a bunch of Taylor stuff, a bunch of Buffy, Pretty Little Liars, all of those types of shows. And you can hopefully tune in every Wednesday for Ryan and I's Scream Puzzle of the Week. They're really fun. We're trying to be as creative as we can be and come up with different ways to try to fool y'all, but you're all pretty smart. So I feel like you guys get them pretty quick.
Well, I also just love this duo. This was a duo that I didn't think that I never thought about you two together, but like, so, both.
Yeah, we fell in love.
1989 people, but also Scream 4 people. Scream 4 is both of their favorite sequels. So there you go. So Justin, again, where can they find you and everything Haunted Mansion?
Yes, I am on Instagram at Foolish Mortals and Happy Haunts. One long giant word. It's kind of a pain, but that's where I'm at. That's where you can find me. We'll follow you back if you follow me, and I'd love to have you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode about all of the news. We will see you next time.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!